Welcome to the Build, Tell, Sell podcast, where we have behind-the-scenes conversations about the art of brand building, marketing, and sales strategies with creative industry insiders. I'm your host, Pel, of PELNYC. Gerard Murray is the founder of School of Hard Knocks clothing brand and Tradition, which is a collegiate licensed brand that is sold in various campuses across the country. His father started a shoe repair store that later grew into the first black Nike account in the country, which also became Gerard's first brand headquarters. Gerard's son then started his own collegiate brand, following in the family's footsteps. There are many jewels in here about building future business while leveraging the past. This is a story about legacy, trust, and passing the torch from one generation on to the next. Gerard, thank you very much for taking this. Known you for a while, known of your family's business before I actually knew you. You know, you had Vaughn's in Queens, and it was like not only a legacy in Queens, it started School of Hard Knocks. You know, the Queen 7 shirt. That was like notorious in our neighborhood and expanded and became a brand and was big. Open me up to the beginning of working in your father's store. Like, how was that, having this neighborhood store?
Yeah, it was interesting. So, I mean, I think in this road that we're about to go on, we have to understand at the time when my father chose to open a retail store, it wasn't uncommon for Black businesses to exist, but in the space that he went, it was very unconventional in the sense that he started out as a shoe repair store. And he self-taught himself how to make shoes. He came to this country in 1967. Wow. And, you know, when he came to this country, my mother came with him, of course, and she got a job as a nurse. My father, he took on a job as a security officer at the United Nations. And quickly, when they found out about his background as a police officer in Trinidad, he was told he can go overseas. So he went over to Jerusalem, and he became very familiar with the culture over in Jerusalem and Israel. And he made his relationships and contacts over there and came back. And one of the things he was told was that if you're going to make it in America, you have to own your own house and you have to buy a piece of property. And so hence he came back. We were living in Brooklyn at the time. He found a piece of property on Northern Boulevard in Corona, Queens, purchased it, 10611 Northern Boulevard, and he bought a store, a commercial front property with, residency up top, 2 apartments above, which we moved in as a family. And he started his road of becoming an entrepreneur. He got in business with his brother. My Uncle Edson, he did men's shoes, and my father, he did handcrafted women's shoes. He made women's shoes and bags. And so everything from having the mold to the machinery, everything, he did all that. So, it was just a neighborhood shoe repair shop called Murray's Shoe Repair. And people would come in, and back in the day at that time, people didn't, they didn't access new shoes online or go to the mall.
There was no online.
Yeah, exactly. So people used to wear shoes, and if it was like a woman or man, working 9 to 5 in the city or wherever, they would bring their shoes in on the weekends to get lifts or a whole sole or taps on the back of your shoes, or even sneakers. So as a young, man growing up and growing up in and around the store, my parents were very, when I say strict, they were very guarded. They knew of what existed out on the outside, and we weren't even at that crack era, if you want to say. Yeah. It was a new country, and for them, it was just keeping us close to the curb and growing up and watching how he handled customers and how customers respected him, and how the store became a place on the weekends where people would just come and have conversations. Of course, his friends, they would come hang out, and it was just a neighborhood destination. And then I remember as I got into high school and finding myself as a young man and like his style, and that the hip hop, early stages of the hip hop started coming in. The sneakers meant something, the belt buckles, a sweater, Lee jeans, or whatever it was. And my father started selling colored T-shirts. Just take a regular T-shirt like this, and all the colors you could imagine. And he used to have T-shirts in his counters, socks, and underwear. And his mindset was those are the basic necessities that
Yeah.
people need. They're gonna need a t-shirt, they're gonna underwear, and they're gonna need socks. So, with that said, one day I said to him, I said, why don't we sell sneakers? And, my father never pushed me to be in the business. I was just surrounded by him and the people he knew in the business. And, I would just see things. And he said, look, if you want sneakers, why don't you look into it? And I think when I look back, I think it was more or less like, get away, kid, you're bothering me. Things, things are all right the way it is. But at the same time, like, hey, if that's something that piques your interest, go find out about it. And that led me to walking up in various sneaker stores, even Models, not knowing. I didn't have a lead. I didn't know anything about it. And just asking everything from the clerk helping you get a pair of sneakers to a manager, or, hey, my father has a store, and I definitely want people to know that we were away from them. We weren't coming to be a competition. And even at that age, I knew like some people would look at me that way. But every store I went into, I mean, let's be real. At that time, it was either Asian owned or Jewish owned. And not even to get into that, a young black kid coming in here asking about where you get your sneakers from.
First of all, a young kid coming in, and then a young black kid at that time.
Yeah, so it wasn't
very different for that time.
Yeah, it wasn't really met with a warm welcome. Like, hey, let me school you. But it changed when I walked into the Coliseum, and Coliseum is in Jamaica. For those who don't know,
Jamaica,
Coliseum.
Queens.
Jamaica, Queens, exactly. It's really the bus terminal where all those buses, after you take, you get there, it disperses all the buses in different parts of Jamaica, Queens. But it was an epicenter for, I want to call it now today we say the culture, the urban movement, whatever. And there was a spot in there called oh God, Mitch. It was Mitch's spot, Mo Sneakers. And
Are they still around?
Mo, actually, he sold the business. I think it's under another name, but they're still in the Coliseum. It's still, but the Coliseum on, Albee Square Mall in Brooklyn, QP's in Long Island City, Jamaica was a Coliseum. It's where everybody went to get their gear. So sneaker spots were there. So I went in there, and the guy, Mitch, he was cool. I asked him, I said, hey, my father has a store. We want to start carrying sneakers, blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me where you got it? And he basically was just like, hey, man, if you serious about this, you meet me out here Saturday at 9:00. And I went out there and I met him, and he drove me out to Long Island. And in the midst of this, we were just comfortably selling t-shirts, socks, underwear, and doing tons of shoe repairs for the community.
So Mitch didn't know you from a can of paint.
Nah.
You walk in looking like a customer.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Young kid coming in off the street. You asked for some guidance and tutelage, and he just offered it to you. Just said
he's offered it up. Yeah. I think
that's
one thing what I came to know about Mitch was Mitch was a cool. He was a white guy, but he was, man, it was like a brother, man. He was so down to earth. He was married to a black woman, and though that didn't matter, but I never met in all the time we had the store and people would come through, I never met somebody who was like a reflection of me, so to speak. That you know how people say, "Oh, he's a cool white dude," and he talked the talk, and he knew the slang, he knew everything. Everybody came in, was showing him utmost respect, and he was like, he walked without even looking over his shoulder, and for him to show me that love, I was like, wow. And he took me out there, and we went to a spot called DC Footwear. DC Footwear, if you could just imagine going to Costco's and think of Costco's as just all sneakers. Just walking into a warehouse. Various brands. At the time, it was, of course, it was Adidas, it was Pony, it was Puma, Avias, you name it. At the time, whatever was going, but it wasn't on the level of what the sneaker rush is here. So it was real.
Nike was there too?
Nike was there. So you would go there and you would get the Cortez. You feel me?
Yeah.
we talking like first generation. Jordans weren't even out yet.
Yeah.
You feel me? Jordans weren't even out yet. So, went out there, introduced me to these guys, Danny, who owned the place, Alan, Bobby. These are just names I'm just rolling off because I'm just thinking about them now. And these are people who I think became very influential in my direction into this business. They really helped our business in guiding us. They didn't show me any ears. When I got there, I was just like everybody else. And when I got there, I looked around and I was like, oh, that's the dude from Flushing. Oh, that's the dude from QP's. I started seeing guys that I patronized their store. They didn't know me, but I recognized their faces because they were, every Saturday you go to so-and-so place, you see the same guy who
Of
owns it or
course.
whatever.
And
And
he
I
was
noticed
behind the register.
dude, they were loading up vans. I'm talking about van loads of sneakers. Van loads, just like you see somebody who owns a bodega and they go somewhere to a food depot or wherever, restaurant depot, and they load their truck up for the week. And I'm watching boxes and boxes. Now get you, I don't know how to buy. So I, double back, told him I was interested. So I went back to my father and just told him I found a place. And, my father was very particular. So when he came here and he started doing it, doing his business, I never really watched him venture outside of Sunday mornings when we used to go down to Delancey Street. And so now just take the landscape of Delancey Street. One side of the street was wholesale, and the other side is where you bought your sneakers and sheepskin coats and everything, and we went down there and we made the left on the wholesale side. And so I'm just backing up the story a little bit before we get back to DC footwear. And we used to go down there every week and buy, whatever, you would have pre-packs of whatever shirt. It was, whatever the style shirt. Every borough had their little look. Yeah. And we would buy a shirt, of course, underwear, socks, big box of socks. It was the same thing. It was just a routine. It was like every Sunday. And I remember the Sunday we went down there and we pull up and we're venturing now into not just blank t-shirts. Now we're getting into more clothing, the printed shirts and some jeans and stuff like that. So we're going to other stores. They didn't know us. And we pull up and, mind you, I said my father, worked in Jerusalem for like 2 years and was living there. And we walk in this one place and they start speaking their language. And he's a, Hasidic guy, Hasidic Jews, they converse with each other, but nobody's taking us in. Nobody's looking at us, And they start yelling back and forth across the store. And we're just walking in the store looking at what they have. And I don't know what's going on. And my father's just like looking, he's got this look on his face. And he starts picking up stuff. And we go to the counter. And my father speaks to them in their language. Pow! Pow! His eyes, he just had this look like he just saw Bigfoot. And my father just grinned. He looked at him. So I looked at my father. I just remember that day so well. And the whole atmosphere changed in the store. Not only that, the guy across the street came in the store. The other guy shout out to another guy. And all of a sudden, it was now we were either going to get jumped or everybody's looking at us like we were the unicorns, Yeah. And the conversation started of how you learn, so he told his background, where he was. And I think the respect they have for him is almost like they knew somebody who came over to their country, knew about the war, and everything about it. Places and
knew the food, knew the culture straight from the. My mother, my stepfather, he worked for the UN as well. My mother moved over there for about probably the span of a year, and I stayed back here as a kid with family, and it was the same experience. Like you get this heavy cultural experience and they just appreciate you being there. Yeah. When you come back and you're able to talk to them on that level of, and same thing going to China. When you go to China, and you do business, it's, I'm face to face with you. You made this journey over here.
Yep. Once you sip that tea with them, that's it.
Oh yeah, that's the part. or the lazy Susan of food spinning around, and it's like a random wheel of fortune of food, and you're like, I'm here though. And it's a whole different, the minimums get lower, right?
Yeah.
Quality gets better of your goods.
It puts somebody, so they were at a comfort level, because it wasn't like just a black man and his son coming in and just walking. And they, like I said, go back to the beginning. In this business, there weren't hardly any black-owned businesses that sold apparel, yet footwear at that. So, money speaks. So, businesses exchange and everything in the goods. But let me tell you something, every time we turned the left and that car came down that street, they knew our car. They knew, of course, our faces. Yeah. But my father was like the black Jewish man, everything from the Star David was on the front of his car. You walk in our house and you walk in the store and I don't want to call it wrong.
The mezuzah, yeah,
was on every door in our house. I mean, that's how it was. So come forward now, we got to the point where we didn't have to leave the store. These guys were leaving Manhattan and bringing us the things that they were like, this is new, I want you to have it. And it was just like Murray, they just called him Murray. So when I think about it now, it's like, Murray's a common Jewish name.
Yeah.
My father's name is Ortner Murray. Nickname is Vaughn, but they just know him as Murray.
Yeah.
And Murray was well respected.
Nah, that's dope. So, how did y'all get the Nike account? I know y'all were like y'all were one of or the first store in New York that was Black owned to have a Nike account.
Yes. So bringing it back. So DC Footwear, we started buying sneakers, and it was a quick flip. You buy sticks of whatever style, bring them in, sell them, and by Thursday next week, you're going back down to DC Footwear. We kept doing this.
Well, let's explain. Sticks being one of each.
Sticks for me is, I like a sneaker. Hey, let me get one of every pair. One of every size, 7 to 13, and sometimes let me just get 9 to 10 and a half sticks once.
Got you. All right.
Ones of each, and then we watched the business start to pick up. Then we know certain styles were like, 5411s, the Club Champions, and the Reeboks. Sneakers that are like iconic. Stan Smiths.
Pillars.
You start stocking those heavier than the other ones.
Of course.
And the sneakers weren't flipping as fast as sneakers flip today. Yeah. And of course, the price, it was a simple price. So it was just, we were serving.
Yeah, a 5411 was $54.11.
$54.11. Yeah, it was a Reebok Freestyle, a women's sneaker with the straps. Yeah. But so as we was doing that, we noticed that we started to become a neighborhood favorite. But in some cases, people, once again, be your own people. They used to look at, your sneakers are high. And I used to always get offended because I was like, I know what the Coliseum's selling them for. And we would even take a $5 loss just to be competitive to prevent people from having to travel across town and go get sneakers, come in here and get it. But long story short, other things started to pop up. So our first sneaker account we got was Converse. Larry Leach, a brother for Converse. He was one of the first Black sales reps I've seen. And then Pete Davis, he was another brother. He was at Puma. And we had those 2 accounts. And then we got Starter. We had a Starter account. We had Champion. So you see that era, you see the look and feel of that was the style. And it was just like, to me, it was like, whatever was hot for me, I was like, we got to get that. We got to get it in here.
Yeah.
But the elusive Nike was something that was growing overnight. Because you got to think now, Nike, it was all about Converse.
Yeah.
It wasn't about Nike. I mean, you think about it. Pumas back in the day, Shell's top Adidas. It was not about Nike. And then all of a sudden, Nike became overnight posters, marketing. The shoes started getting in, the whole Air Series, and then trade shows back in the day. I used to go to the Super Show. The Super Show was held in Atlanta. It was the World Congress Center, and at the Dome, formerly the Dome, and these were trade shows for the sportswear license show. And so for all the sneaker companies are there. And I remember that year that I went there, and I used to walk in all these booths and look to be telling them, hey, I have a store, explaining the situation to them, would like to get an account. And some people blow you off, and like I said, we started to open small accounts. I'm talking about a sock company or a hat company, what have you. But these are all, when I look at the accounts we have, they're all like iconic brands now. Like people look at these like, to have Pro Player, that was a big deal, even though, it doesn't mean anything today, but Pro Player account and different things like that. But it was frustrating. Nike was growing as a company, getting more and more popular, getting the right people to endorse them, right plays. They had the shoes and popularity, and it just would not return anybody. And it was like impossible to get a Nike account. It just became something where it was just like you heard about it and you just envied those who had it, and those who had it were few and far, few and far. And then I remember a trip we took to, it wasn't a trip, it was my grandmother passed away in Trinidad, and we went down there, and I remember my wife at the time, she wasn't my wife at the time, but, we were just talking, and it was about, just trying to, I say sometimes somebody's death puts a battery in your back to make you say, I have to do more. And we felt like, something had to be done a little bit more. What was I doing? At the time I was working at the airlines. I was working for Delta Airlines. And I was working at the store. So I worked there at night and worked at the store in the daytime. It wasn't meeting, So she actually constructed a letter asking the basic question: how can we as a Black-owned business enjoy the modest piece of the American pie by getting your account? We have we just started talking about our community. It's like, we support y'all. We buy, we like, things that we know so common nowadays. It was like I was saying it then, and it was like there was nobody to talk to. And then we used to throw parties. You know, we used to throw parties. My friends and I, we had you know, back in the day, it was like mailing lists with physical papers with people's name, phone numbers, and the whole. So we made a copy of the mailing list and we attached it to the letter. So it acted like it was a letter, and here is everybody in our community that agrees with us. 2 weeks later, got a knock on the door, and it was a Nike rep, you know?
Nike rep?
A Nike rep saying, hey, we've been trying to open you guys for a minute, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's giving the talk. Yeah. And at the end of the day, he opens us up. We opened up the account in late 1991, and we had a $10,000 credit line. And I always say that is enough to hang yourself, or it's enough to, you know, take them lemons and make lemonade. And we made lemonade. And we took the same approach of the way we used to do DC footwear. If my father gave me, you know, a check and say, hey, don't go over 3,000, I would buy within that, you know, so you give me a 10,000 credit line, I'm buying the best within that. And we're getting them in and we're flipping. And then the game changer came when, you know, I always felt, and when I mentioned Larry Leach, Pete Davis, and like I said, I know a lot of reps in this business. A lot of ones who are not reps anymore. I see a lot of new reps. At the time, most of the reps that came to the store were middle-aged white guys or young white guys, and they would come in, and I felt like they were, you know, even at that age, I either vibed with you or I didn't. And I knew a lot of cornballs who sold me my image and my culture back to me, you know. And in this case, not mentioning any names, there were two reps. So in Long Island, there was a place called the Mart, and everybody would go there and they would buy goods for their store, you know, just like you have showrooms in the city. But the Mart, it was convenient for the guys who lived in Long Island and handled the Queens area and so forth. But everybody converged on the Mart. And there was one guy there, and he said, oh, I found like he used to try to play us all the time, you know, like he would dump stuff on us, or, you know, it was always something. And I always said to myself, if I ever had a company, I would never hire a guy like that. So he set the bar for what I've never wanted. But then I had, on the flip side, great sales reps.
Well, let me ask you this. Yeah. What to you actually is your definition of a great sales rep?
One, somebody who understands the market, who they're selling to, you know. I love somebody that eats, sleeps, and breathes it. And if you're not from the culture, I understand, but have respect for it. You know, have vision, be a visionary to see where it's going. Don't insult it and think it's tapped out at this. And sometimes guys came in and, you know, you know how much that is? I don't want to hear, just, I want that, you know? You know, guys who are just, like I said, true, who really have integrity, you know, who really say it, walk it, and talk it, you know, don't just come in and get an order and run it out. I don't see you until the next season or whatever. They call back and they follow, you know, good follow-ups, you know, they follow up, see how the product's selling, you know.
Not just being
like
transactional.
That. Yeah, you know, like I said, anybody could take an order. There's a lot of order takers out there. There's very few good reps, you know.
So
there's very few reps. From
y'all having the store, then how did you start? What prompted you to start School of Hard Knocks, the Queen's 7 shirt?
And so that's why, so in dealing with certain reps and stuff like that, there was one guy who used to come to the store and he used to always pick my brain. Before he pulled anything out of his bag, we would sit there and we would just talk. And my father would not be involved with the sales reps. He would stand on the side and just listen. And it was more or less, let me see how my son is handling this guy. And, you know, he didn't understand.
And how much is going to cost me?
Yeah. But at the end of the day, this guy used to always pick my brain. And now that I think back and I look at it, he probably got it from other people. But if I said, hey, you should do this, like I would make changes. You know, why don't you do this? And why don't you do a whole black baseball shirts, all black, different. Everything I said to him, I would say a good percentage of that would be shown to me in about another 6 months. You know, and now that I'm in the business, I understand the sales wrap up, the feedback, the changes, overseas sample, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, come back in the store and be like, hey man, remember last time I was here, you was asking me, were we doing a black series? And I was like, I didn't ask you if you was doing a black series. I said, you should do this in black. And he would show me it. Yeah. And me being young, I was excited, like, yo, this is what I'm telling. But you know, it's just the learning. It's just the learning. But
And it's also part of the sale too, because now you
Yeah,
feel
and then
included in the process, and now you're
yes,
buying your
yes,
idea.
you got to know you got to know your client. You got,
Yeah.
but the same. My father had said one thing. He's like, God left. He said, you know what? He said you should do your own thing because all that guy's picking your brain and he's bringing and selling you back to you. And my father did not say much, but when he spoke, it was that ear funny,
Yeah.
So like I said, my father's very dark skinned man with a very strong Trinidadian accent. So that in itself, for some people, was just like, huh? What? I did not. He's speaking English. He just had an accent,
Yeah.
So he allowed me to do, I was the American kid.
Yeah.
I was all American kid. So that right there, it started with me saying, you know what? For this guy from the company he was bringing me, I was just like, look, he's telling me things that nobody around here ever went to UCLA. Not saying they can't. They didn't go to UCLA. They didn't go to Notre Dame. But these are the brands these are the names and that was hot and was selling. And I just was just like, people around here came from School of Hard Knocks. It was just it wasn't like I made the word up. It was just something I said in reference to looking at the community and the change and how things were. And that started a little light bulb going off. And then, just a matter of hooking up with, okay, how do I get T-shirts printed? And, at that time, it was the very cusp of hip hop, urban, wear, whatever. So the only people I saw were like going to the Javits Center, the young men's, the Nasby show, they used to call it. So the world, what's it on the West Side? Jacob Javits Center. Yeah, they used to have a trade show there. And it would be like, for every season. And we would go there, and then one year I went there, and there was a booth that was buzzing, and I'm talking, people were flocking around like a bunch of pigeons. Like, what is going on there? And it was Cross Colors. Wow. It was Cross Colors, and it was
Carl Jones, right?
Carl Jones and T.J. Walker, two brothers there, and it inspired me at that time where it was just like, wow, a black dude is. That because I didn't see, you walked the shows before, you didn't see too many brothers. You saw brothers who was walking with another white guy. Usually they worked in the store. It was the assistant buyer or whatever. Yeah. What you think about this, but he's really doing, he's really penning the order. But it was just like, I saw that and I never seen some brothers in the forefront like, yo, this is our brand. And then they had a brand that was like people were clamoring to get into their booth.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a little bit after that, right behind Carl Jones, T.J. Walker came Carl Kanai. And Carl Kanai
that was the game changer.
Kicked the door open and it made me realize, okay, I'm going to take this blazer and suit I have with this button-down shirt, throw it off, and I'm walking in the show with my sweatshirt because one of the guys I met who was selling Carl Kanai, he was me times 10, and it was a brother by the name of AZ.
Yeah.
And AZ in this business was your first and foremost, he was the realest representation of the brand. He was what the brand was. He represented that, who they were selling to. He wore it, he talked it, he did everything. And I remember just watching and his presentation was so, for those who may know AZ, what you see today is the same AZ back then, just real good-hearted, no malice, no nothing, just straight up shooter. And at the time, his presentations were so different. The way he laid the clothes, the way he spoke about it and everything. And it was just like, it was different. And then just around there, you started to see those other brands pop up and, you started seeing Bubblings. And that's when I took it back and was just like, I'm going to put this School of Hard Knocks on the shirt. And when I did it on the shirt, my cousin Rich from Canada, he was with me. He's looking at it. He was just like, so what is School of Hard Knocks? And me, you could say I'm long-winded. I just started rambling. And he condensed everything I was saying and he put that. And it was really for what we were going to make a catalog. It was supposed to be the first page of a catalog. And it basically spoke to what School of Hard Knocks was, and what it said. And it was like, it was a mouthful, but to me, it was like, if I got you to say that, nodding, then you're going to buy the shirt. And that became School of Hard Knocks on the front and the concept on the back. And then we just had T-shirts and we were selling them, in the store. We sell in the store, and in this time, things started bubbling. Music, hip hop music started to evolve.
It really caught on, and I mean, this is before I know that the brand expanded. I remember I was actually wearing it when I was down in VA in the military. because I wanted to represent Queens.
Mm.
Right? And you had the paragraph list on the back of these T-shirts of all these locations in Queens. Like people,
but that came a little afterwards. You talking about the Queen shirt?
Yeah,
It's Queen shirt and the School of Hard Knocks shirt. So when School of Hard Knocks started, it started with 4 designs. We had one design called a wild style that looked like kind of like a graffiti type of style.
Yeah.
We had one called a 5-borough thorough, which was a School of Hard Knocks, and it had the nicknames of the 5 boroughs in there. We had our classic, which was the block letters, the classic block letters that looked collegiate that sat on top of each other. And we had an oval design that just had SOHK. And we rocked out with those shirts for quite a bit.
Now that Queen shirt was like, I need to represent my borough, right?
Yeah.
It was the closest thing outside of a Yankee or a Met hat that I could, at that time, that you could have to represent where you was from, you know, for me anyway. And I remember my cousin, he lived down there with me, and he was from Queens, and it was like, he needed one too, because we got to rep when we go out, right? So let me ask you this, like, School of Hard Knocks, what was one of the hardest lessons that you learned when you started to go wholesale with your brand?
It was no equity in the name. We had no leverage. Nobody knew of it. It was just, you know, I was just another dude pushing tees. I could have been on a street corner on 125th Street, but I walked in with a little leg up in the sense that I just mimicked what came at me. Now, reeling all the way back to Delancey Street, how those guys treated my father. Reel it back to when guys started coming in our store selling us different brands. Reel it back to when I started going to the mall. I took a little bit of everything that was good and was like, okay, this is how you present people. And I walked in, even down to an order pad. And the first retail place I went into was Spice Joint. Because think about it, flagship stores weren't really the thing then. You know, like people didn't have a brand, have a, you know, at least in the streetwear world or urban world, whatever you want to call it. At that time, it was like Spice Joint was off the chain. People came in town and they were visiting a Spice Joint like it was, you know, it was like a, you know, people come to Atlanta and go see the King. You know, they go to the King site. Like you came to New York, everybody was like, can you take me to Spike Lee spot? So I remember taking some shirts down there, and before really even putting the shirts in there, becoming familiar with who worked in there, you know, from the manager, Courtney, to the people who worked in the store, but, you know, walking in with my shirt on, coming out there with some friends, we all had it on. So people gonna pique your interest. Yo, what's that y'all got on? And Spike used to have these block parties and stuff like that. So we became a little familiar, and then I talked to the guy and I said, hey, I want to carry some shirts in your store. Now, granted, Spike's Joint paraphernalia all over was the hot thing, but he started to introduce other brands, you know? And so I brought some brands down there, not some brands, I brought some teas down there, and they sold. And when it sold, they called back and we just started, you know, putting more shirts.
You just need first week good sell-through.
Yeah,
right?
See, now, all that talk sell-through, I didn't know what that was. I was like, yo, I gave you 12. How many sold? Oh, we got 2 left. Well, y'all want some more? And then we bring some more back.
You want to re-up?
But I was more of a retailer. I was just like, I wanted to drive that back to our store. But if I could have shirts in Brooklyn, I looked at it as back in the day, dudes from Harlem, Brooklyn, if they got fashion, everybody else gonna follow. You know, and this is a Queens dude talking. I knew the pecking order. I knew how it was. I knew that, you know, dudes in Brooklyn could dress, but dudes in Harlem was just on some fly other stuff. And those are the 2 areas.
So fast forward and you have School of Hard Knocks.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the, you know, urban change, the landscape change, and you did something that was just very different to me.
Yeah.
And you went in a whole different direction, and you went towards the collegiate realm with Tradition. And you was doing the Tradition brand where you was selling to college stores. So what made you want to actually do that?
So that actually was supposed to have been like, you know how you have School of Hard Knocks, you have the fiction, nonfiction.
Yeah.
School of Hard Knocks could have morphed into whatever direction it wanted to. Now, this is School of Hard Knocks after we signed the licensing deal, had the success and everything. It was a great name. One thing I knew about the name penetrated, it was relatable with Black, white, you know, Latino, Asian, rich, poor, educated, not educated. Everybody had their School of Hard Knocks story.
Yeah,
but then when you went to said school, everybody who went to school talked about, you know, their rough time at college where I didn't have any money, whatever. So I've always felt like there was a school of hard knocks within real schools. But I always had a certain respect and admiration for licensing business, for the simple fact that when we started dealing with Starter, and I take it back to the Super Show, 1 year flying back, and I remember this so well. Starter is owned by David Beckerman, and they had success, and the brand's been around for a while. And at some point, his son, Brad Beckerman, got involved. And now to tell you, if I seen Brad walk through the door, he wouldn't know me, and I probably wouldn't recognize him, whatever. But it was a meeting where I used to work for the airline. So when I flew to the show, I flew free, and 9 times out of 10, I flew first class, and I had to dress up. I had to wear a suit. You know, back in the days, non-revs had to wear suits. That's what you called when, you know, people, employees from the airline. So I get on a flight, and they give me the ticket, and I sit next to who? Brad Beckerman, flying back from the trade show. Must have been a good show. He's in a good mood. He's talking, but boom, you know, young brother sits down with a suit on. Who are you? I'm in first class. So I'm sitting next to him. He's telling me about his idea, and he's targeting hip hop artists. Jazzy Jeff, Fresh Prince. He was working with New Edition at the time. And they had something called Flip Squad that he was going to do with them. And Flip Squad was a whole brand that he was doing with them. And I was just sitting there going, man, these schools, you know, I was more interested in how did you guys get all these schools? And his thing was really going off into the musical path, it seemed. Yeah. But I remember kicking to him and telling him about School of Hard Knocks and how I felt, you know, and I think he listened. He gave me that respectful 2-hour playing conversation. But when we all got up in our seats, everybody went this way. But I just remember like, wow, I just spoke with Brad Beckerman, you know? And from there, it was just like, you tell me of another industry where I say all the time, always acquires brand new customers every year. And they get it through graduation with loyal alumni and incoming students. So collegiate licensing is what I really love. Major leagues, baseball, football, NHL, you know, NBA, you know, it's a rough thing to do. And I didn't know too many people who were having, you know, people having success, but they were big companies. But, you know, I just didn't see anybody of my calling for my level of getting a licensing deal, you know? So, you know, working with the colleges back those days when hip hop was coming out, people would go on these black college tours, and a lot of record labels would take their artists on black college tours and know if they had a hit, and they would perform.
Still do.
They still do. So at the end of the day, I was like, I'm going to take School of Hard Knocks and we're going to go on a black college tour. We're going to drop some shirts. Like at that point, you started knowing friends at this college. This person going away here, take some shirts down, and it was like early brass ambassadors. You know,
yeah.
Yo, just take these shirts away with you, give them out. So now the person giving it out is now popular because he's giving away free shirts. But now you have, you know, whatever amount of people on campus wearing it. People are now inquiring where I'm getting it, and then these people come back and be like, hey, everybody wants a shirt. Can I get some? And I'll be like, here, take these back, give it to them at a price where they can make some money. And it was just a grassroots grind. It was a real guerrilla marketing type of thing.
So that was the initial seed for you looking at the college landscape. And then when you started Tradition, when you was doing your new brand, you looked at that landscape like, I always wanted to do this.
Yeah, always knew.
Now is my opportunity.
Knew. Yeah, now's opportunity. You know, some of the people I knew in the business already who were the ones who gave deals out, you know, when I brought the Tradition idea, I think everybody was so caught on the celebrity brands. You know, every celebrity was coming out with a brand through somebody in the industry. And when you said colleges, it was just like I said, it was the tail end of Starter.
Yeah,
you know, that mid-90s. So it was kind of like, they like that was, it was the licensing stuff was starting to die off. But if you have a loyal, passionate person about their school, that's never going to change. I don't care what's going on in the industry. If you went to whatever said school, you're loyal to that. I don't care what the economy is doing. I don't care
true
what
indeed.
The fashion trend is. They wear their school colors all day, all night.
No, they do.
Yeah.
So School of Hard Knocks, then you do Tradition.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no, even before that, your father and you, the store Vons, right? Beautiful thing. Then you do School of Hard Knocks. Then you do Tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like the torch has been passed on again to your son.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, yeah, my son,
And he's doing his own brand right now.
Yeah, he's doing his own brand. And it's almost like it's all over again. It's like my father never pushed me into it, and I never wanted I didn't want my son in this business. My father never pushed me into it. I got bit. You know, I was in that store and I just got bit, and I just loved how he maneuvered. And one thing, just to back up my father was more than just a community store. He became a place where people came in and they spoke to him. It was, you know, not to say guys without fathers, but anybody, guys, girls, what advice for things. My father would just sit down and counsel people, and talk to them, encourage them.
Let me dial back on
Mm-hmm.
that, because I was there as a kid, right?
Yeah.
So, and even I wasn't like going all the way up to Northern Boulevard. That store was the spot to get your gear, like straight up, to get your sneakers.
Yeah.
Tim's, when Tim's was popping, to whatever was popping, that was the spot to go to, because it wasn't like a whole bunch of franchised out stores. It was like very localized. And if you knew this store was known for having XYZ, you went. And then it became like the flagship for the brand School of Hard Knocks.
Yep.
And then the brand was bigger than the store, because when y'all had like big collections at that time, you could not fit all of that stuff in that store. Right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, so I can, and especially being from West Indian parentage, same place, like my family's from the West Indies, and they come here. Anybody who's an immigrant, you come here, it's like you have the blinders on, and I have to do what I have to do,
and these kids got to get this education. That was the thing.
Yeah,
that was it.
Don't come to me with no foolishness about I want to draw this. No, you're gonna be a doctor.
No,
you're gonna be a lawyer. Right? That's what you're gonna do. Right? And I don't think that's just West Indian parentage. I think that's just like
I think it's the immigrant story.
Yeah,
I think it's the immigrant story.
Just being
anybody whose family came from another country with you know, and really looked at the roads of America was paved with gold, came to roll up their sleeves and do every and anything, and lived in a house with a whole bunch of others. Everybody got their footing. The kids, you want your kids to either go on a direct path to high education or get a good job for stability, and that's all it was.
So your son's brand right now is Legacy Pride.
Legacy History Pride, LHP.
Yeah, Legacy History Pride, and speaks directly, taken from the mantle that you left off with Tradition. And, and he's in college, so
him
it's
and
like
his friends.
Yeah,
him and his friends. It's like when I tell you this, it's like, you know, whoever wants to take whichever way from it is like, one thing you don't do is you don't aggravate the youth. College, I mean, college campuses for years are where things started. You're going back to when people protested at Berkeley or whatever, you know, whatever story, you know, whatever college, Diddy. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to see a movement, mess with those college kids, because if you buck them wrong, they're going to show you this is the way it is. They are the water. They are the river that you can't stop. So, you know, him and his friends, they were an intricate part of what was going on with Tradition, and they were looking at strictly from an HBCU standpoint.
Yeah, strictly.
Like they care less about any of the other schools. It was strictly about historically Black colleges.
Oh, I didn't even know that. So let me
strictly.
I know, like, so talking a little bit more about just the marketing that was going on when your son because I remember when he came in and he was like, yo, he's doing like all of this Instagram and social media stuff. I'm not as aware of the intricacies, like, because he's living it and breathing it. So when you saw him doing his brand, was it, you know, like, what did you learn from him that he was doing marketing wise?
What I learned from him, wow, I'm still learning from him. I'll say be a sponge. Every day I try to learn something. It's just like, you know, you cannot force feed things on people. I mean, back in the day, I could say back in the day all day, but back in the day don't mean nothing to him. It's about, you know, as I said to him, innovators will always innovate. And me and you spoke about this. Creators going to create, and the situation we're in right now with the pandemic and quarantine and stuff like that, you know, that's what I'm seeing rising right now. I mean, I did not force him, did not point him in any directions. If he gets to know somebody like yourself or one of my friends, it's just an extension of me. But I leave the room because he stands on his own. He carries his own weight. And I look back at what he's doing is what I did when I was that age, when I came to my father and was just like, we need sneakers.
Yeah.
You know, we need sneakers. And my father allowed me to build School of Hard Knocks inside his business. You know, he supported me, he pointed me in the right direction. He tried to prevent me from hitting pitfalls, but I had to hit the bumps in the road, get the bumps and the bruises, because things are always evolving. Nowadays, I think the social media standpoint, from a online e-commerce website, you know, kids are different. They just move different, and I cannot impose my experiences and my whatever on him. He's going to find out his own, and they have. And everything down to the way photography is done, imagery, influencers and stuff like that. I mean, it's just another avenue. I already told him, I said, look, this is probably one. And I said, I know a lot of people in this business who started with an idea and then evolves to another, team up with another guy, evolves to another. And some of the great companies we got right now, you think about the leaders of those brands and where they started and how it elevated into them, you know, being who they are and where they are right now. You know, you've seen this industry evolve.
Oh yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing about it. What is one of the most memorable gifts that your father gave you?
Ooh, my father, man, it's so many. Like I said, my father's he's a giant. As my cousin said, he's such a giant of a man, and I've watched how he relationships. He's big on relationships. He's loyal to a detriment. You know, I mean, he was loyal. I mean, my father, as you know, my father passed away about close to 4 weeks, going on 4 weeks now. But down to his last, he always treated people, never put anybody higher than the other person. You know, he had a lot of respect for just the next man, I should say. And though he wasn't always, I think, met with respect, after they dealt with him, he earned every ounce just because of who he stayed true. He's consistent, and he more or less minded his business. So there's a lot of things I did in business that I had to do because I was like, damn, my father's never going to do this. But I did it to show him. But even when I was wrong, he didn't shove my head in the sand and be like, I told you so. You know, he was not that type of person. He would say something and walk away and was like, yo, we ain't got to talk about it no more. You know, I told you. I told you, you know.
No, that's great.
Yeah, he really was a family man. So, and like I said, real loyal to whatever he was involved with, or whoever he was involved with, loyal to the end. Yeah,
that's a beautiful thing. What are some of the key differences in marketing that you see between marketing to a college store or marketing to a regular retail?
I think regular retail, they are a lot more savvy. They are knowledgeable. They live in that community. They know what their customers need. They see a lot more brands. And the good ones, the good buyers, you could drop the names of buyers over the years. They used to walk in and everybody get excited when they walk past their booth because they thought Izzy was going to write an order. You know, it's like it's always those names. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's so peculiar. Like marketing, at the essence of it, it's about what does this brand mean to who you're trying to sell to. I think who's wearing it is still a big deal.
Even in college?
Oh yeah, I mean, so what happens in college? Like I said, you have a loyal customer, very cookie cutter. It could say whatever, Howard University on it all day long. You get 1,000, and then we're talking bookstores to regular stores of night and days. Bookstores are what they are, what they really say. It's a bookstore. Yeah. It's a bookstore. The buyer there is just to maintain the numbers, hit their numbers, keep the shelves stocked, keep it moving. When we introduced tradition to the colleges, it became something that was just like so different. Like it had style to it. It was that same item they were wearing that denied their school name. Now it had the school name on it. So it was not very trend chasing, but it was on pace with what was happening out there without going over the top. But the bookstore was really you could sell the same shirt to them year in and year out, and like, oh, we have it in black this year, and it's the same graphic. It's just so it's a lot of carryover.
So were you able to take some of the marketing trends and ideas that you saw out in the regular wholesale business and then bring it in? It was like super refreshing to them.
Oh yeah. So one thing, I have a lot of friends in the music business, and I always say this: people who are in the music business will not say always, but they will be very successful in the clothing business, especially from a marketing side. Because from the record industry, especially for hip hop artists, black music, whatever, they would be given small budgets to market. So street teams became thing, throwing out. Like I still remember being down by West 4th, and Wu-Tang at the time, nobody knew they were Wu-Tang, came through and they were tossing these cassette tapes, and it was their first single.
Yeah.
And that guerrilla marketing, we did that on campus. So we started doing that on campus, touching base with, the term big man on campus or big girl on campus, the most popular students on campus. Hit them with some product, keep feeding them some product, and the rest is just going to follow.
Yeah,
the rest is just going to follow.
I did an interview with a friend of mine's named Ket. He started Stress Magazine, helped to bring Complex Magazine on board.
Stress is one of the originals.
Yeah. And so he has a museum down in Miami called the Museum of Graffiti, and he's doing the same thing. He's like, yo, I'm bringing it back to more hand to hand, like tangible, doing snipes, doing literally flyers, going and talking to the tourists that are walking.
Come on, so not to interrupt you, but let's take it just to I'll give props to where it's due. I remember going to a trade show and Echo had stickers all over the place. Oh, yeah. Where's Echo?
Yeah.
Genius. But you know what? That's a record industry. That's a record industry move, man. Bad Boy with the picket signs, with billboards on poles in the city. That was what they did. And you know what? When you do it to a college campus, they're shaking up like, yo, who is this?
Yeah,
so everything. Yeah, and it's like sometimes you have to be unconventional and and unorthodox, and just do what you feel is right, and it'll work out. Now I've been in many situations where I've seen nepotism put people in position. I hate to say it, I see racism, I seen favoritism, I see all type of isms you could, but at the end of the day, it's just like you have to. When you make that relationship, hold on to that relationship, and then it'll lead. Like I take it back to little things that people did for me that is I can't even count how in debt I am for them. Like somebody, as I told you before, like Eli, his crew, it was Eli, Alyasha, Savior. They had this brand called Elements of Style, and here I am with the idea of School of Hard Knocks, but didn't really know where a good printer was. And he came to me and he was like, yo, let me introduce you to somebody. Introduced me to Pro Graphics. And for me, at the time, Pro Graphics was the best printer on earth.
Pro Graphics was the spot. Even when I was working at 10 Deep, like, that's where we went.
Yeah,
To give some context to some of the stuff that Eli has done, like, he's the one who helped put that big, the Nas mural and the Prodigy mural.
The Queens mural next to our store, that's Eli. I mean,
I didn't know that.
He's a graffiti. So if
I know Elements of Style from graffiti, but I ain't know
seen the Queens joint. The Elements of Style logo was up in the corner because I said, that of course you put your logo up there. Yeah. So Eli was, and Eli to this day is a friend, a good close family
he's
friend.
A good dude.
Good dude, man. This dude don't have an ounce of animosity to anybody in the street. And he's flourishing now. I think he's working more in the furniture designing space. But at the end of the day, he put me on. But I used to look at them, and they had a showroom. They had a showroom in Long Island City. And I would just know these guys were just talented. But you know what? They were years ahead of themselves. And I give credit to PNB. PNB back in the day, where PNB, the acronym could have been Post No Bills, Puerto Rican and Blacks. I mean, Please No Bacon. You could get, but they were doing their thing. And like I said, I'm gonna date myself, but I'm talking like when I talk about Spice Joint, the only store I knew after that was Naughty by Nature. They had a store. Wu-Tang had a store. Then down on Bleecker Street, you had
Triple Five Soul.
You had two black guys from Toronto. They had a store there for a stench.
Yeah, I think Triple Five Soul was on Ludlow. That was their first
Ludlow, excuse me, Ludlow. And then you had Staple. Staple he had his little spot right there. I think it was off of Lafayette, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember, but I remember then he extended the store to go all the way across.
Yeah, so those little jewels right there, it was a mixture of it was bubbling. It was
that
bubbling.
Was like the changing of the guard.
Yeah. When did it burst? I say it burst on the scene when I remember who was it got a deal. I think it was PMV got a deal, and when they got a deal, I was like,
oh yeah.
I was like, yo, who's handing out deals? Because I know who knew what a deal was.
I mean, it was the old Garmentos that were giving out deals, and then right now, then they spawned Urban.
Yep.
Then those deals helped to spawn some of the deals for streetwear, you know, and it keeps on going. As far as sales, like what was one of the biggest misconceptions you had about sales when you went really into wholesale? When you got your deal with School of Hard Knocks and you was going wholesale?
I don't know how to answer. I mean, in reference to what? Like, how do I price? I don't know.
No, what was what's a misconception that you had? Like, you went into the game thinking XYZ, and then when you really got behind your brand on the national stage, you was like, you learned something about just the sales component.
Just the whole process. I mean, the whole process from the design. I never knew what a tech pack was. I would find a place that could make basketball shirts, go in there and be like, I got this idea. And I would just tell them, like a visionary, I'm just telling you my idea. I didn't know about a designer, a spec design, like all these things, you know, you needed that went into building of a brand, and all those behind the scene people who, you know, I mean, I met the dude who owned the company, who out licensed the name to, but all the people behind him who did, you know, logistics, the traffic, bringing stuff in from overseas, people who overseas working, you know, with the factory and just.
So you was learning along. So there was another learning process.
Yeah, because it wasn't when I licensed it. Truly, what we did, we licensed our name, but we operated like we were business partners, like we were in a, you know, a partnership.
That's when
I was in the office.
Nessie,
I was
right?
coming in. Yeah, that was Nessie Apparel, Vincent Nessie. And I was coming in, but in actuality, I could have just, okay, you licensed the name. This is what you got to pay me quarterly, and here's the marks. Gotcha. You know, let me see before you put it out. Let me check off certain things. You know.
Oh, I didn't even know that the deal was like that. So
yeah, the deal was just a straight license.
Oh, so the deal was a license, and then you went into doing license stuff with the colleges. It's just everything is just intertwined. The thought process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let me dial back a little bit to selling with AZ. Like, what are one of the biggest jewels that you got from AZ as far as just sales are concerned? Because I know AZ, and he's still in the game right now.
Yeah. Integrity, man. AZ, if he can't do something for you, he gonna straight up tell you he can't do it. Yeah. He gonna tell you he straight up can't do it. If he could rock with you, you know, and just like I said, this stores you're gonna open and there's another store you can't open because they're right next door. I seen him handle situations like that so smoothly, but I think he was just he's just a genuine guy. You know, he knows the product, he knows the market. I give it to him. I've seen this guy. He's done sales in New York. He's done sales in the South. He's done the Midwest. He's in the Southwest. He's done
Cali.
He's on the West Coast right now. I mean, You tell me another rep that you've ever met that's covered ground in this country like that. Now, I know reps who work out of New York is like, oh, I cover the whole country. I'm not talking that brand boom rep. I'm not talking that people who can walk the walk, talk the talk, go in the streets. Like AZ does that, man. He does that. Now I'm not just championing it, but AZ is that person who really motivated me to say, dude, you can do this, man. And so when we did the magic show, and we got my man Kenyatta had this idea to call it Black Magic, and we had suites up in the Mirage, and people were coming to the suites because customers are always looking, buyers are always looking for what's hot, what's next. And things in this industry, you and I know, it's all a circle. It comes and it goes, but when it turns, they turn on you. They turn when black is not hot anymore. We're good.
Yeah,
and they run into what's hot.
Yeah, and they'll give that sales rep that helped them make money. They'll throw them a bone. You know, they'll mess with whatever you're doing, but it is very directional.
So you know, just to answer your question, like I dealt with him in reference to my brand at the tail end. I was more looking from a distance with AZ as a salesman, watching how he did his presentations, how he held his hanger and did all the, all what you had to do as a rep. He did that so slick. And then it started to, more guys started to enter the market, younger guys, and, people who were more attached to the culture and eat, sleep, and breathe it. And the landscape started to change. The brand started to change. The people, the faces you walked into showrooms began to become more cool, more relaxed, and the whole thing started to shift. But the plans were always aligned. They just shift sometimes, which one was in front of the other. But other than that, this industry it's interesting. It's real interesting. We weathered the storm, and I did not go to school to be in the industry. And I know a lot of people who they didn't go to college, and they survived in this industry. This is not let me go get a degree and let me get the. Yeah, some have done that, from a technical side.
Yeah,
stuff like that. But some of them reps just came out of left field.
Yeah, I think that it definitely is relationship based.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Two other questions for you, but one, drop a jewel for that kid that's out there and thinking about starting a brand.
Wow. I say that every time in any little interview discussion, I tell people, like, one thing I realize is you have to do your homework. A lot of people running around always want answers to the tests. You hear, hey man, I'm starting a line. Where you get this? They don't look into it themselves at all. You have to do the homework. You gotta learn. You're not gonna learn everything, because I'm still learning to this day. I'm sure you're still learning. You're constantly evolving. But the one thing you don't do when you're walking across that wooden drawbridge, you don't strike matches and just throw it over your shoulder. And there's people that do that too. They burn bridges. They just burn bridges. They just burn bridges. And I think I've been in this business and I've been here a long time, from a retail, both sides. And I have a lot of people that, I could say they can speak highly of me and vice versa, and I really value, it goes back to my father, I value relationships. Now, in that time, are there people that you have fallen out with? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's just like, we're all in this for the reason of making money, of course, but everybody would love to have some success. And, I just tell people, don't burn bridges, man. Just be a student of the game. Understand, understand that and sometimes it could be that one person, that one conversation. So I don't care. It could change it. It could be a flight. It could be a conversation on a flight. It could be a walk down the street, you're in the elevator. You'd be surprised. The person that usually turns that switch on for you is somebody that you did not even have on your radar. And the person you're always chasing down, there's a lot of people I've chased down, and it's just a chase. Just a lot of good talk, a lot of conversations, and into my culture, the people of my color. I say that, our color. I've been in this business a while, and I've seen a lot of people that I gotta say I've despised in the way they do business. And I've always said it: let's not become what we saw or despise. Don't become that. And I see that some of us in this business, they are becoming the ones who they close their ears to the young people. They think they know it all. They're one trick pony. They're still trying to do 90s, early 2000s come ups here in 2020.
Yeah.
Don't be that dude.
Know
when to fall back. And I think for me, fall back is where it is. I mean, it's a fall back. Stop trying to be the face. Stop trying to be all up in the video. You say it.
Well, hey, let me so I know that you've restarted the Queen shirt. So where can people find the new Queen shirts at?
Yeah, so here we are. I mean, 2020, 25 years ago is when the first Queen shirt came out. And that's the shirt you talked about. The Queen shirt was just, back in the days, just to give them the story of it, back in the days, you could hoot and holler. There's Bronx in the house, there's Brooklyn in the house, there's Harlem in the house. You never heard a peep from a place called Queens. KRS-One said it. But Queens, if it wasn't for Queens, where would hip hop be? Come on, man. I'm talking to you. Anybody else, I don't care where you from. If it wasn't for Queens, it started like that.
Let me talk my Queens joint, because I got to tell people straight up, like, when you come to New York, you got to fly into Queens, either LaGuardia or JFK.
So when we talk about hip hop, we talking about
Nah, I mean Russell
Run
Simmons.
DMC. We started going
Yeah.
through the list of
Yeah.
people from Queens who have made a
Yeah.
huge contribution and impact on hip hop, and that's how the back of the shirt came. It had people from Queens, notable names, places, and of course the things with the little areas in Queens we're from. I don't care if it's from Corona to Jamaica to Queensbridge, whatever. And that shirt
people
just took off.
Yeah. So what's the IG for it right now?
So the IG is Queen 7. Just Queen 7. That's it. You go on Queen 7.
Okay.
And though it's a Queens thing, and that's really what I say. It's like today I still have people buying it and say, hey man, I still have my shirt from back in the day, 25 years ago, 20 years, whatever. People say to me, hey, I remember when I was in junior high school, my mother wouldn't buy the shirt because she didn't want to pay all that money for it. But now these are grown people with kids. Like I say, I'm dating myself, but at the end of the day, this is how it was in my father.
Nah, I mean that's brand loyalty. That is brand loyalty.
Yeah. To where it could go, I don't know. All I know is they love the Queens. I'm not gonna stop doing a Queen 7 shirt, and it morphs into other things.
I'll end it on this note. Where it's gonna go is from where it started, because it's gone full circle from your father to you, School of Hard Knocks, to your son, and now you're back to doing the Queen shirt again. So I want to thank you for your time. I really do, really do appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. The show is available on video at PELNYC, IGTV, and YouTube, and audio in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Please subscribe to the show, and if you feel so inclined, leave us a 5-star rating, and please leave a comment for your thoughts on this episode's insights and ideas. And most importantly, please enjoy life nurturing your creativity.